I think I'm losing my mind. I am literally losing my mind today. I read a couple of days ago that the average person is reading less than one book per year. What are we doing? This is insane to me. Like, how in the world are we not consuming books at a higher rate? I'm assuming if you're joining us here on the podcast today, you are a learner. I know you are. But I'm just going to tell you, the people around you are not committed to learning right now. They're not committed to growing at a rate of less than one book per year. Hello, what are we? This is crazy. I was speaking a while back, and I had a guy come up to me at the end, and I made a statement during the thing that it's important for us to continue to grow, to continue to learn, to be a learner as a leader. And you've probably heard before, leaders are readers and readers are leaders. And there is, I mean, those are all cliche and things people say, but it sounds like to me nobody's actually doing it. Everybody's talking about it, but nobody's doing it. So this is nuts. This guy comes up to me at the end of this talk and he says, "Hey man," he said, "I made a vow," which I thought was kind of interesting way to say. He said, "I made a vow when I graduated from high school, I would never read another book in my whole life." And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? This guy, not the most impressive guy I've ever been around, let's just say it that way. But he was honest at least. He was like, "I think this is stupid. I'm not reading anything." And so I would say to you, if you want to be stupid, don't read. Don't you just ignore what we're talking about today. You might even want to turn the tape off if you're not committed to reading, because I'm going to drive you crazy here. We don't have a guest. Actually, we have about 10 guests today. I've got a bunch of books with me that I went and just grabbed a few off the shelves, and I thought I'd talk about this importance of reading today. And I'm gonna give you an idea or two that I get out of each one of these. And I'm not going to read the books for you, but I want to encourage you to find some books and become a leader. We're going to talk about, or become a reader. We're going to talk about a little bit today why we want to read. And then I'm going to give you a little challenge at the end, just like we did last week. Last week we talked about the importance of growing if we want to chase greatness. One of the main ways we grow, we didn't cover it last week, we talked about it, but we said we're going to do a special episode today on being a reader. And so I think this is one of the most one of the easiest ways we can accelerate our growth from where we are to where we want to be. We can move from good a little more toward great. We're talking about chasing greatness here these last few weeks. And again, greatness is not about fame, notoriety, being better than the people around, but greatness really is about understanding your responsibility to influence the people around you, to impact the world, to make it better. And I don't know about you, but I'm not real confident that the government's going to do that, or the schools necessarily right now. There are people out there trying really hard and doing stuff, but there's a lot of chaos we have going on right now, and part of it is because we don't have people who are taking up their mantle of responsibility and saying, "I'm going to do what I can in my world, in my family, in my neighborhood, in my community, my school, my team," those kind of things. So today we have a chance to get better, and yet you're telling me that we're reading less than one book a year. That's not acceptable. So let's think about what it would mean for us to step up our game. And I don't know about you, but if you're like me, you probably read more than one book a year, but I'm guessing you could actually be a little more committed to reading, and it wouldn't be such a sporadic thing. I hope I get to read, but it could be more of a planned, strategic, intentional, focused thing in your life. So hopefully you'll hear some things today that'll help you on that. So let's talk about the power of books, and I'm gonna use some books to do that. So I told you last week I'm learning about writing this year. I've got this book I'm working through right now. It's called On Writing Well by William Zinsser. Just full of all kind of good stuff that, as I look back on my education, I'm not sure I was as focused as I needed to be when I was, I'm sure I wasn't as focused as I needed to be when I was in high school, and the people who were trying to teach me how to write, I was really struggling. And as a result, when I got to college, I started out in remedial English. I couldn't even get into an English class. So the idea of me being a writer and a speaker and all those kind of things was kind of laughable at the time. But thankfully, I've made some progress. This book is helpful. As I just think about these books here, this is a book I read just a couple of weeks ago called The Myth of Equality. And this is by a guy named Ken Witzma. It's about the roots of injustice and privilege in our nation, and the black-white question, and just so many things that I learned as I read this, and was reminded of just how the game is rigged in so many ways against people of color, and that's not acceptable. And so this book was just a good reminder of some things that we can do to help, especially in the circumstances of being a white person. And so if you're not wrestling with these issues, why not? I mean, what are we doing that we would not want to help make a level playing field for every single person? So this book is really great. Here's another book I read this year. I heard Todd Henry speak at a story conference last year. I talked about investing in yourself, going to conferences. I had a chance to attend the story conference in Nashville the last few years, and Todd was one of the speakers, and he wrote a book called Die Empty. This book is great. It's so good as you read this book. I mean, that's just highlighted and marked up, and that's one of the things I would say today is when you read, mark your stuff up and write yourself notes and ask yourself, what do I need to do to apply what I'm learning? These are great. But Todd's book about dying empty, his subtitle is Unleash Your Best Every Day. And I like that mindset. It really is a chasing greatness kind of mindset to say, I'm going to get to the end of my life and I want to be empty. I want to have left it all on the field, just almost like a coach would challenge you before a game. When this game is over, let's make sure that we don't have any regrets on our effort and our ability to focus on what we could control. There's always things we can't control. I got another book here that is a book that I actually try to read every year. It's a book called The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker probably written as much and has influenced the topic of leadership and even management as much as anyone over the last 75 years. I mean, Peter's been gone for a while, but just incredible thinker. And one of the things I take from this book, I just pick it up and it makes me think of his one statement, know thy time. It's like the leader understands his or her time. They know where it goes, talks about time auditing and just so many things that effective executives do. So, last week I talked about having a coach and having a mentor. All these books become that for me as I it's almost like I get to spend time with Henry Cloud. I've met Henry, but here's Henry Cloud's book, Necessary Endings. I think about that. One of the things Henry says is that the best leaders are able to say no. They're able to end things. They end relationships. They end projects. They end things that need to be ended. He uses the premise in the book of a rose bush. Not long, the rose bushes will be budding and blooming. And Henry talks about, he gives this metaphor of the rose bush that every rose bush has more buds than it has nutrients to supply. And so the good gardener knows, we talked about gardening last week a little bit, they understand, he or she knows that they have to prune for that bush to fully explode. And so if you're going to become a reader, Henry would say, there's some things that are going to have to be eliminated from your life so you could have time to do. You won't get any more time. You already have the time, but you're spending some of your time on social media, you're scrolling your screens, and yet you're going, I don't have time to read. You do have time to read. You're just choosing to do something else with that time. And so Necessary Endings might be a book you need to start with. I don't know. Here's a book, Great by Choice. I just like the title, so I pulled it off the shelf. We were talking about Good to Great last week, and Jim Collins, he wrote Great by Choice. And I like that mindset that I have a choice as to how great I want to be. The old Latin word I've mentioned before, quantuvus, which means as great as you choose. You get to choose whether you're great or not, or whether you chase greatness or not. And so one of the ways you can do that is through reading. These books are just fantastic. There's John Maxwell book. What was the name of that one? He's got so many books. Your Roadmap for Success. That's a good one as you're thinking about 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. So many things I think about from that book, how there are people around you, and there's a law of the lid he talks about. That's one of those laws. And you get to a certain point and you're just kind of tap out with your stuff. One of the ways you can raise your lid is by reading. That's a fantastic mindset. There's Seth Godin's Linchpin. That's a great book. It talks about becoming indispensable in your organization and your team. in your department, in your company, your family, whatever. You want to be that person that others are able to depend on. You're the one that really kind of holds things together. I like that mindset. Here's a book, Mark Broadie's Every Shot Counts. I love to play golf, and I'm trying to get a little better and trying to understand, how the game works at an even higher level than what I do right now. And so this is the probably not something that'd be interesting to you, but it's pretty interesting to me. He's got an analytical approach, a shots gained approach. If you're a golfer, you've heard of that. If you've watched golf on TV, but he's taken the analytical thing, and this book has helped me kind of set expectations. So, for example, this is one of the crazy things, but this is, again, an example of something you can learn from a book. So the average professional PGA Tour guy, man or woman, would make about 50% of their putts from 8 feet to the hole. That sounds like they should make a lot more from 8 feet. That's not very far. But they only make about 50%. So if you're an amateur, you read this book, you're thinking about it, you're going, the reality is if I make 50% of my putts from 8 feet, that's a world-class level. And so our expectations are we get upset because we miss a putt from 8 feet, and you're thinking, what in the world? But this just kind of helps me reset my thinking. Here's a book called Resonate by Nancy Duarte. Nancy did, her team did a bunch of work for us on our content, slide presentations, all those kind of things. They're the best in the world at presentation. And Nancy's book, Resonate, if you are presenting, you're looking for how to build slide decks, any kind of presentations in your company, I highly recommend Nancy's resources. Here's a book on politics. It's actually, I'd call it somewhat of a biography on Abraham Lincoln. Doris Kearns Goodwin, presidential historian, has written that book. It's fantastic. There's The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. He's a pastor out in California. I think that book sold over 30 million copies. If you haven't read it, you're one of the few people that hasn't, it sounds like. Just fantastic on your life, how it's supposed to work. And if you've got questions about that, highly encourage that. Cal Newport's Deep Work, as you're thinking about working, and distractions that we talked about last week. I love some of the things he talks about, just having this focused, deep work, these blocks of time that you can work from. Simon Sinek over there, Start With Why. I saw that one on the shelf. I thought that's just a good reminder that we need to make sure that we know why we're doing what we're doing. It's just a good book to remind us if we can, stay focused on our mission, those kind of things. It was great. Got a couple other books here. Mark was on the show last week. We talked about his book, Great Leaders Grow. If I had one book for you to start with of Mark's that I would recommend, he's written, 9 or 10, 12 books now. But I would encourage you to go back to The Heart of Leadership, Mark's book. This is fantastic. We've written all kinds of resources to go with this. We train this on the self-leadership side and the companies that we work with. And you can get that book at leadeveryday.com. But Mark's book, it's just those 5 heart habits of a leader that others want to follow. Is fantastic. And then if you're struggling with engagement, I'll give us a plug. Dan Webster was on a few weeks ago, but Dan and I have written Unstuck. And this is a great book on engagement. There's a good process in the back that'll help you after the story, and you can work through to make sure that you're focused and locked in. So we got all these people that have visited with us today, just in a little indirect way. I can't read these books to you. I wish I could just sit and read some of the passages to you. It'd be a fantastic to listen to them speak and almost just breathe into our lives and into our leadership as we do that. But we don't have time for that today. But I am going to encourage you to pick out maybe one of these books or another book. Find something that you want to read and say, okay, I'm going to go spend some time with this author and get you a cup of coffee and whatever it is you do, and find a place and spend some time. So let's take this mindset of being a reader and see if we can't tease it out here for just a second before we go this week. So I want to give you a few things that you can do that will make it easier for you to read. Because here's what my hunch is that people want to read more than one book a year. I think the people who don't read a book a year really would like to say at the end of the year, I did read. I did read some books. And so, and just like you and I, as I talked a moment ago, I think we all would like to read a little more. And yet, how do we do this? So what do we do? So I want to give you a few things, again, that I think will help you. So the first one is, I'd say to make it a habit. Make it a habit. It actually can become a habit. You have so many habits in your life, so many routines, activities, things that are important. You do them over and over and over again. Reading can become one of those. And just like Mark talked about last week, we talked about last week when it comes to learning, most of us are not natural learners. We're not natural, like this is, oh goody, I get to learn today. We have to make a decision. It's great by choice, as Colin says. I want to just confess to you, I'm the same way as a reader. I don't wake up in the morning and go, I hope I get to read a book today. And yet I have become a reader I've been a reader for, 30, 40 years. I wasn't a big reader when I was in school, but I'm telling you, reading has become a part of my life, not because I wanted to, but because I chose for it to. And so for you, the same thing can be true. You get to choose what you do with your time. Drucker says, know that time. You know your time. What are you doing with it? If you are not spending some time with books and with other people to help you think at a bigger level, you are not going to be great when it's all said and done. You're going to struggle to chase greatness. If you really do want to maximize your life and you do want to live up to your potential and you want to help other people live up to their potential, reading can be so important. So make it a habit. And when I say make it a habit, I would go so far as to say, choose a time on your calendar when you're going to read. It might be 15 minutes a day. It might be 2 hours a week. It might be every Thursday afternoon. You get to decide what that looks like. But if you don't have a time and it's not on your calendar, it's probably not going to happen. Good intentions are not going to get you to the last page of a book. It's just not going to happen. And so you need that time. You need that place. Find a comfortable place. I got 3 or 4 places in my home where I go back to them over and over again when it's time to read. I got one favorite spot that I've been using lately. I sit at this table. It's got a little lamp. It's got a couple of comfortable chairs there, and I sit at that place. And I got my highlighter there. I've got a notepad usually there, or something that I can make notes on. Literally, you can pick these books up and open them up. I'm just highlighting the dog out of it and making myself notes. And so I would encourage you to get a time, a place, make it a habit. Here's another thing I would say, make it easy. Make it easy. You say, what do you mean make it easy? Well, you may not be let me turn the pages of a 200-page book. I mean, that may feel really hard to you. You need to do that some, but you may say, I'm more of a listener. Now, I want to warn you here, if you begin to become a listener, you listen to books on tape and audio, those things are great. Subscription to Audible, I love that. I listen to a lot of books. But I also, if I'm not careful, I'll put it on, 2 times the speed. I do that, By the way, here's a little trick for you. If you want to increase the speed of your reading or your listening in this case, go ahead and jack it up to 3 times, and you won't even be able to listen to it. It's like, it's so fast you can't even, understand it. But do that for about 15 to 20 seconds, and then back it down to 2, and it's almost like your brain just calibrates on that high speed, and then 2 sounds almost like normal at that point. In fact, if you listen at twice the speed and then pull it back to normal speed, you won't even be able to listen. The pace will be so slow. So you can actually listen to more books if you will speed it up, and listening is a good way to do that. But there are some books that you don't need to listen to. You need to sit down with a highlighter. You need to sit down with a pen. You need to sit down with a slow mindset and say, you know what? I don't need to have to feel like I've got to read every page today to be successful. Maybe I need to read 1 page today and do what that says. And so that might be helpful to you. I know one leader, I think it was Howard Hendricks, who's written some great books, by the way, but Howard, before he died, I think it was him who challenged learners to spend, if you have an hour to read, to spend 30 minutes reading and 30 minutes thinking about what you read. So that's another good way to think about that. So when you make it easy, there's several things you can do. Listening might be good, not always listening. Sometimes slowing down might be good. Another thing I would say when it comes to making it easier is sprinkle books around your home. When I walk through my home, there are books in every room. I want to make it where it's easy for me to pick up a book. It's easy for me to to have access to books all the time. And so if you want to be a better reader, make it easier for yourself to do that. Another thing I would say is not just make it a habit, make it easy, but make it affordable. Books can be expensive. They can, 10, 15, 20, 25 bucks for a book. And that can add up over time. I do challenge you to take 1% of your income, as I said last week, and invest in yourself. And books are a great way to do that. But you don't have to buy every book that you read. And so one of the things I do, I actually have a library card. I remember the old library cards. If we're reading less than one book a year, I'm guessing most of us don't have a library card, but I'm one of the weird ones, I guess, that does have a library card. I think everybody needs a library card. And I don't have a library card because I go to the library. I have a library card because it gives me access to the app that is built into my library. And what I do with that is I'm able to download the books or borrow the books for 2 weeks on my iPad, which is where I like to read. And so you can, whatever works for you, go to the library, check out the books. That's great. But, rather than having to turn them back in, it's easy to access those books on the iPad. That's fantastic. They have audio format. They have the written format, and you can recheck them. It's just great. I mean, it's one of the coolest apps that I have on my phone. Mine's called Libby. Your library will be different, perhaps. Some of them are Libby, and some of them have others. But if you go to your library, get a card, they'll tell you what app to get. Now, here's the bad news of that. Not every book in the library is available on the app. But a lot of them are. I've got 10 or 15 books that I've accessed in the last 6 months that through my library. There's business books. There's obviously fiction. I mean, there are all kind of books through your library. So I would encourage you to make it affordable by doing that. Another way to make it affordable is share with your friends. You buy a book, and he buys a book, she buys a book, and each of you read and you swap them. I'm not even saying start a book club. I'm not in a book club or anything, but I do give books to my friends all the time. And, there's times when my friends will send me a book. I got a buddy, he sends books all the time to me. And so I would say there's the sharing of knowledge is just a really good thing. And so make it affordable as you do that as well. So there's so many things that we can do to set ourselves up for success. Have a book by your bed all the time. And at night, rather than scrolling your screen and all those, rays that are coming in through the screen they talk about that affect your rest and mess you up, get a lamp by your bed, get a book, read 4 or 5 pages before you go to sleep, and let your mind be ready to rest, not, full of light and screening and scrolling and all those kind of things. So a book by your bed can be a powerful thing. And then let me give you one more thing, and then I've got your challenge for you, and that is this. If the book is bad, stop. There's too many good books for you to feel obligated to read every page of a book. If it doesn't hold your attention, then you totally have permission to move on. I've read so many books where I read a chapter or two, and it's kind of like not doing it for me, and I just put it down. And then I've read books where I get a chapter or two is really good, and then it starts getting really slow, and I don't stay with it. If it can't keep my attention, that's not my fault. That's actually either A, on the author, or B, it could be the context of my life. And let me say one little thing about that. So there's times when I'll read a book, and it's actually a good book. It's something that I need to read, I need to learn about, but it's not really dovetailing into. Remember last week we talked about, do the seeds or do we have the right seeds going in for what we're trying to learn? Just because it's not good now doesn't mean it might not be good later. A book like Necessary Endings is going to be relevant all the time, or Drucker's Effective Executive, or some of these, books are principle centered. They're going to be evergreen if you think about it that way. But there's some books that are going to hit you at a time where you need to read that book. And so if it's not that time, make yourself a note. I want to, if I ever have a situation where I'm learning about this, I want to read this book, and just set it off to the side, come back to it later. You can do that. You obviously have permission to do that. So leaders really are readers. People who are great are readers. I've read stuff about Warren Buffett, and you can Google this, and Bill Gates. Those guys are like Bill Gates is taking a couple of weeks a year. I saw a documentary on him. He has a reading week. He goes away And I did this just a few weeks ago. I took a couple of days and I went away and I just spent some time reading and pulling out. And we're actually going to do some stuff on this moving forward too, but pulling back and understanding that I don't need to be on the work all the time. Sometimes or in the work all the time. Sometimes I need to be on the work. I need to be thinking about it and reading about it and preparing for it and sharpening. We'll get to that. But you hear about Gates doing this, and then Warren Buffett, supposedly the man reads 5-6 hours a day. Now he's reading probably stock reports and all kind of stuff. Who knows what he's reading, news, but there's a reason that some of the people in the world who are at the top of their game have taken time to prepare. Even as you think about athletes who have been dominant, they spend so much time preparing. What we see is a very small little piece of that. And so reading is one of the ways that we prepare ourselves to lead. It's one of the ways we prepare ourselves to help other people be great. I've said this for years, if you're reading, you always have something to say, something maybe worth saying, as opposed to if you're not reading and you don't really, it's almost like your mind, your heart is not as rich. It doesn't add as much to the conversation, and honestly, you just don't stay sharp if you're not listening to what other people are thinking about. And I would say just a couple more things about the books that you read. Read widely. Read old stuff. It's so tempting to read in an area that you're comfortable. Read a golf book. That's pretty comfortable to me. Maybe I need to read a technology book, or maybe I need to read something on science, or something that maybe is not as interesting to me, but it might stretch me a little bit. And so I want to encourage you to read widely. Read old stuff, not just new, the latest, greatest, stuff that came out. There's a lot of new stuff here, but there's some old stuff here as I look at them. A book, Richard Swenson wrote a book called Margin about maybe 30 years ago. And it's just the idea from that book is not building your life up to the pages. If you had a book and you were thinking about the margin of that book, if it didn't have a margin, that book, it wouldn't be readable if the words went off the page. That would not work. Our lives are that way too. Swenson talks about how we want to go up to a certain spot, but there needs to be margin there. So there's spaces in our lives so we can have a life. And so another good book, that's an older book. And I've got my favorite book over there, the Bible. I like to read it every day. It actually makes the list every day for me. And it's one of the oldest books that we have around, bestseller of all time. So I want to encourage you to read widely, read old books, read fiction. If you never read fiction, pick up a fiction book, read a story. Read a nonfiction book. If you just immerse yourself in thrillers all the time, or in some kind of mass fiction, that's your genre. Flip it on its head and read a self-help book. Read something on fitness. Read something on growth. Read something on leadership. You don't have to stick in one genre. In fact, getting outside of that will open your mind and heart even more. So here's my challenge for you as we go today. I want you to set yourself a goal, and I can't believe I'm going to go public with this, but I'm actually going to share with you my goal. So this year I had one of the things I was thinking about was I was going to try to read, and it's kind of a unwritten thing, but every year I want to try to read a book every week. It's kind of the way I think about it. And so I figure if I can read 50 books in a year, I am that makes me 50 times better than the people who say I don't want to. I don't know if 50 times better. That's probably the wrong way to say that. But for somebody who doesn't read at all, they are going to struggle to make progress. I'm thinking 50 of them would be helpful, but that's not my goal this year. So here's what I did. I actually, because of my reading week, this helped, and we were listening to a couple of books in the car. My wife and I did on the way down, and so I got to the end of January, and I had read 10 books, which was like that's probably my record for. There have been years I haven't read 10 books, but that was my record for a month for sure. And so I've gotten 6 more here in the month of February. I'll look at my guy over here filming, so I'm going to share I haven't gone public with this goal. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to double down this year. I'm going to see if I can do 100 books. Now, full disclosure, I've never gotten 50. I always get real close to 50. So I am having to put a renewed focus on this idea of reading. And man, that's about a book every 3 days that I'm trying to read. And I'm not like just skimming the book. I'm really trying to read the book. Audio is helping. But I'm having to spend some time, an hour or so a day, reading. But here's the deal. If you will spend 10 minutes a day, you will read 10, 15 books this year. If you'll read an hour a day, you can read 100 books this year probably. So you get to decide what you choose to do. But if you don't set a goal and you don't have a goal that you're, I've gone public now, so I know I'm gonna have people, like, how you doing on your goal? I got a couple buddies. They'll be busting me here with a text after this. But I'm gonna tell you, if you don't have a goal, you're not likely to do much better than you've done in the past. You can wish that you were a reader all you want to. Readers read. Leaders read, yeah, but readers read. Readers read. So if you really want to be a reader, you got to sit down. You got to put your butt in a chair. You got to read. You got to put the headphones in. You got to go for a walk. You got to put it on double speed. Set yourself a goal. Find a place. Find a time. Make it comfortable, and make it easy. Make it a habit. Make it affordable. Chase greatness in this area of reading. It really is a turbocharger from good to great. It will accelerate you so much faster than if you just leave it to chance, watch TV, lock into the news. Those kind of things, they're just not going to feed your mind and your soul and your leadership acumen like books can. So books are such a powerful thing. These people, they don't know it, but they become friends in their influence on my life. I've got hundreds of books that, I just, every time I pick one up, there's an idea waiting. If you're missing out on that, you really are missing out. Let's chase greatness together. One of the best ways we can do that is be readers. We'll see you guys next week. Make sure you share if you got somebody you're wanting to partner up with you on the reading thing. Make sure you share this week's episode with them, and I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Let us know any comments you have. If you have any questions, we're constantly trying to make it better here as we chase greatness together. You guys have a great week.